Jenna Geller felt an intense pressure unlike anything she had ever experienced before. The labor pains were much more severe than she had anticipated. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for reassurance. The doctor's face was a mask of concern, his brows furrowed, eyes darting between the monitors and Jenna. It wasn't just the typical labor pains. Something was terribly wrong. Jenna's heart raced, fear gripping her tightly. And just when she thought she'd meet all 7 of her long-awaited babies, she realized that something was terribly amiss. Jenna Geller, a spirited woman with a heart full of love, had recently married the man of her dreams, Mark. Living in a quaint town in Montana, they had always dreamed of starting a family. Their love story was a whirlwind romance, and their joy knew no bounds when they discovered they were expecting not 1, not 2, but 7 babies. Jenna and Mark were elated at the thought of meeting their septuplets, dreaming of their future filled with laughter, love, and chaos. But Jenna's pregnancy journey had been far from easy. She had faced numerous challenges and obstacles, but her determination and love for her unborn children had kept her going. The weeks leading up to Jenna's due date had been fraught with worry and anticipation. The doctor had warned her about the risks and challenges of carrying 7 babies. The threat of complications loomed large, but Jenna and Mark remained hopeful and positive, believing that everything would turn out fine. However, as the day of the delivery approached, Jenna began to feel uneasy. The intense pressure and pain she felt were unlike anything she had ever experienced. The fear of the unknown was overwhelming, and Jenna sensed that something was amiss. Could this be the start of the complications the doctor had warned about? Jenna lay on the hospital bed, surrounded by the soft glow of the overhead lights and the comforting presence of her husband, Mark. The room was filled with the gentle hum of machines and the hushed whispers of the medical team. A sense of anticipation hung in the air as Jenna prepared to welcome her 7 precious babies into the world. Her heart was filled with hope and love, and she eagerly awaited the moment when she would finally get to hold her children in her arms. But as the labor pains intensified, Jenna's excitement turned to fear. The doctor's concerned expression was a stark reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. As Jenna's labor progressed, the intensity of the pain grew, and the atmosphere in the delivery room became increasingly tense. The medical team worked tirelessly to monitor Jenna and the babies, but the situation was becoming more complicated by the minute. Jenna's fear and anxiety reached a new peak as she realized that the dream of meeting all 7 of her babies was slipping away. The looming threat of complications cast a shadow over the joyous occasion, and Jenna's hope began to waver. Would she be able to meet her septuplets? The moment of truth was approaching, and Jenna braced herself for the imminent arrival of her babies. As the medical team prepared for the delivery, a sense of urgency filled the room. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest as she awaited the first cries of her children. But as the doctor's expression grew increasingly grim, Jenna knew that something was terribly wrong. The first encounter with the unexpected twist left Jenna and Mark stunned and bewildered. What had gone wrong, and what did it mean for their family? Jenna and Mark's journey began with pure joy, their love culminating in a quiet, heartfelt wedding. The anticipation of starting a family lingered in the air, a shared dream of perhaps 1 child now, maybe 2 later. But life, as they soon discovered, had an entirely different plan. The day they found out Jenna was pregnant was blissful. Yet the revelation of 7 heartbeats echoing during the ultrasound left them in a bewildering mix of astonishment and trepidation. Jenna, particularly, felt the weight of this news deeply. The thought of mothering 7 children simultaneously was beyond her wildest imaginings, humbling her to the core. The shock was palpable in the room as the doctor detailed the rarity of their situation. Jenna and Mark held hands, seeking comfort in the warmth of each other's grip, their minds racing with the implications. It was a daunting prospect, expanding their family so significantly overnight. Yet, as they talked through their fears and hopes, the idea of having 7 children began to feel less like an insurmountable challenge. The fear started ebbing, and what started as a possible problem quickly turned into a unique blessing. They started envisioning a life filled with laughter, chaos, and love, times 7. However, as the initial shock waned and reality set in, so did the complications. Jenna's early symptoms of pregnancy, expected yet fierce in their intensity, soon spiraled into something more alarming. The nausea, at first dismissed as a normal aspect of pregnancy, became relentless, and sharp pains accompanied by severe fatigue raised red flags. Jenna's inability to retain nourishment and her constant exhaustion hinted at underlying issues, propelling Mark to rush her to the hospital, clinging to hope but bracing for the worst. The hospital's sterile environment was a stark contrast to the warmth of their shared dreams, the beeping of machines an ominous backdrop to their growing fears. The doctor explained the risks associated with high-order multiple pregnancies. "Multiple births are risky for both the mother and her babies," he began, his voice steady but filled with a deep concern. He continued to explain that in cases of more than 4 fetuses, the recommendation often leans toward reduction to safeguard the health of the mother and increase the survival chances of the remaining fetuses. Jenna and Mark listened in stunned silence, the weight of the doctor's words crushing them. The concept of selective reduction, presented as a stark choice between the health of the few or the risk to the many, left them reeling. They were asked to make an impossible decision, to consider the termination of some of the fetuses to give the others a better chance of survival. They were unprepared for this, having already started to imagine their life with 7 new souls to love. They'd even decided on all the names for the babies. This would end in nothing but tears. Mark, ever the pragmatist, understood the gravity of the doctor's advice. The notion of reducing the pregnancy to save the others, and Jenna, made logical sense. Yet admitting this felt like a betrayal of the dreams they'd just begun to nurture. Heartbroken and torn, he felt that it was ultimately Jenna's decision to make. He would support her, no matter what, but the thought of losing her, or any of their children, was unbearable. Jenna, however, was resolute. It was in the quiet of a sleepless night that Jenna found her resolve. Lying awake, feeling the faint stirrings within her, a sense of peace washed over her. She understood the risks, the potential heartache, but also the love she already felt for each tiny life burgeoning inside her. Jenna's decision was clear. She would carry all 7 babies, come what may. The morning light brought a sense of renewed purpose as she shared her decision with Mark. Mark's reaction was a testament to their bond. Despite his reservations, he embraced Jenna's decision wholeheartedly. His respect for her courage and determination only deepened his love for her. Together, they began preparing for the road ahead with a unified front, their resolve solidifying into action. They researched, sought second opinions, and fortified their support system, determined to face the challenges with optimism and unwavering support for each other. This decision did not come easy. It created a temporary rift between Jenna and Mark as the weight of the decision and its potential consequences weighed heavily on them. Mark struggled with the thought of putting Jenna and their unborn children at risk, but Jenna's determination and maternal instinct to protect all her babies at all costs resonated deeply within him. Eventually, he understood that their strength lay in unity, and whatever the outcome, they would face it together. It would only be a matter of weeks before he regretted this decision. In the days following the hospital visit, Jenna and Mark sought solace in each other and the support of their families. Conversations were heavy, laden with the weight of the decision at hand. Their families, though initially overwhelmed by the news of septuplets, became pillars of strength and understanding. The couple found themselves grappling with the morality, ethics, and practicalities of their situation, conversations often circling back to the same unresolved tensions. Jenna felt a visceral tug of war within her soul, even though she'd already made her decision. The desire to protect her unborn children, clashing with the stark reality of their situation. Mark, feeling somewhat helpless, watched his wife struggle with the burden of their choice. He knew that ultimately the decision lay with Jenna, her body the battleground for this unprecedented challenge. Despite his own leanings towards reduction for safety, he'd vowed to support her decision, even if it could lead to the worst fate ever. If only he knew what terrors she was about to welcome into her home. As Jenna's pregnancy advanced, the physical toll became increasingly evident. She found herself confined to bed rest, the once celebrated bump now a constant reminder of the precarious situation they were in. Mark did his best to keep their spirits up, decorating the room with pictures and bringing her updates on the nursery they were preparing. He tried not to show his worry, because if this went south, he'd not only lose his children, but his soulmate as well. He was constantly on edge. Jenna was feeling grateful for her husband, Mark's affectionate and caring nature. She cherished the way he pampered her with love and attention. However, little did she know that their world was about to turn upside down. One fine evening, Mark had gone out of his way to cook Jenna's favorite meal and shower her with love. As they were getting ready to retire for the night, Mark's phone rang unexpectedly, causing him to snap in annoyance. "Who is calling me at this hour?" Jenna suggested that he ignore it and attend the call the next day, but neither of them could predict the impact of that phone call. Mark was finally ready to hit the sack after a long and tiring day. His beautiful wife was already in bed, waiting for him. As they cuddled up and started to drift off to sleep, the shrill ring of the phone shattered the peaceful silence of the room. The incessant buzzing against the wooden nightstand only served to irritate the already frustrated couple. Mark reluctantly got up, his eyes heavy with sleep, and answered the phone with a deep sense of annoyance, completely unaware of who could be calling him at such a late hour. Jenna watched as her husband's hand shot out to grab the ringing phone. "Please stop calling. I'm trying to sleep," he grumpily huffed into the receiver. But his tone shifted suddenly, his skin going pale as he listened to the voice on the other end. Jenna could see the fear in his eyes, and her heart raced as she wondered what news could have caused such a reaction. Mark suddenly jumped up from his seat, still holding the phone to his ear, and hastily rushed out of the room, leaving Jenna in a state of worry and confusion. She waited anxiously for his return, hoping that everything was okay. After what felt like an eternity, Mark finally came back, but his demeanor was far from normal. His eyes were ablaze with an intense emotion, and his face was tense. "I know the truth," he declared, his words leaving Jenna stunned and mystified. She couldn't fathom what he could be referring to. Jenna noticed a sudden shift in Mark's demeanor. The man who was her loving and empathetic partner just moments ago was now unrecognizable. His gentle expression turned into a scowl, and his entire body language radiated anger and frustration. Jenna struggled to comprehend what could have caused such a drastic change in him. She mustered up the courage to ask him a simple question. "Who called you?" However, the moment the words left her mouth, Mark's reaction was explosive, far beyond what she expected. She was caught off guard by his outburst and couldn't fathom what had caused it. Mark's words hit Jenna like a ton of bricks. "I need to think about things," he had said in a frantic tone before hastily making his way towards their wardrobe. Jenna just sat in her bed, completely stunned. Her body was paralyzed with shock as she tried to process what was happening. She watched as Mark packed some clothes and his toothbrush before leaving their bedroom without a second glance. A few moments later, she heard the sound of Mark's car rev to life. The noise gradually grew quieter until it was gone entirely. He had left her alone, pregnant, and confused. Jenna couldn't help but wonder what had compelled him to do such a thing. Despite her strong urge to grab the keys to her car and chase after her husband, she realized that it wasn't a wise decision to go out on the road this late at night, especially since she was pregnant. She reluctantly accepted her fate and resigned herself to the fact that she would have to try and fall asleep without knowing where her husband was. She pulled the blankets over herself, trying to shut out all the anxious thoughts that were racing through her mind. The silence of the room was only broken by the sound of her restless breathing as she lay there, lost in her own thoughts. The first rays of sunlight peeked through the window, marking the arrival of a new day. Jenna stirred in bed, hoping to find her husband Mark by her side, but the bed was empty except for her. She had a naive hope that he would appear and explain the strange and unsettling events that had been happening lately. Letting out a deep sigh, she decided to get up. Thankfully, it was a Saturday, and she didn't have to rush to work. She got dressed and started making her way downstairs to the kitchen, feeling a sense of emptiness in her heart. She waited anxiously for his return, hoping that everything was okay. After what felt like an eternity, Mark finally came back. But his demeanor was far from normal. His eyes were ablaze with an intense emotion, and his face was tense. "I know the truth," he declared, his words leaving Jenna stunned and mystified. She couldn't fathom what he could be referring to. She had to eat something, not just for herself, but for the sake of her unborn children. However, as she descended the stairs, she saw something that made her blood run cold. She realized that she wasn't alone in the house. Jenna's heart raced as she descended the stairs, her mind racing with thoughts of what she might find. When she reached the bottom, she was confronted with a sight that made her blood run cold. The front door, which should have been locked and bolted, was wide open. Jenna felt a sense of dread creeping up her spine as she realized that something was very wrong. She stood there frozen, unable to move, when she heard a sound coming from the living room. Her heart pounding, she reluctantly peeked around the corner to face whoever or whatever was waiting for her. Jenna saw a shape on her couch, but it was hidden underneath a blanket. She slowly approached the formless mass and ripped the blanket off. Relief flooded her system as she realized that it was Mark. She didn't know whether to hug him or slap him. She quickly locked the front door and made coffee for the duo. She woke him from his slumber and had to ask some important questions, ones that would put their marriage in jeopardy. Jenna's irritated voice pierced through the silence. "Where have you been?" she asked, her eyes squinting in annoyance. Mark opened his eyes slowly, rubbing his forehead as he tried to gather his thoughts. "I had to get some answers," he replied vaguely, knowing that it wouldn't satisfy her. And he was right. Jenna insisted that he tell her exactly where he had gone, leaving him with no choice but to reveal the truth. He told her that he had gone to see one of his old friends, hoping to get some advice on a personal matter that had been weighing heavily on his mind. But Jenna's concern only grew. She knew that Mark was the kind of person who kept things to himself, and rarely reached out to others for help. Sure, he had friends, but he almost never spoke to them about personal issues. At least, not to her knowledge. She needed to try and get him to open up. Jenna sat down beside her husband and knocked over something that was next to the couch. She looked down and saw a small bottle of whiskey. He didn't normally drink. What was going on? Jenna confronted him about it all. The disappearance, the alcohol, and the door being wide open. She watched as Mark's gaze hit the floor. He didn't even want to look at her. That was what confirmed the fact that he was the guilty party. But she had no idea what he had learned about the previous night. He was told the truth about her pregnancy, but he still didn't admit anything. He just sat there, stone-faced. Whatever he had learned, he wasn't going to tell her easily. She wondered how she could convince him. "Can you at least tell me who called you last night? I know it was the reason why you left. If I find that out, at least I'll have peace of mind," she said, as calmly as she could. "I shouldn't give them up," Mark muttered under his breath. But the look that Jenna gave him told him that he was in big trouble if he didn't tell the truth. "Well, it was one of my friends," he began. "They had concerns about the pregnancy and asked me if I was okay. It was nice for someone to look out for me, so I went there to hear them out." After talking for an hour, Jenna finally got Mark to admit that he was sorry and that he would never do it again. But despite his words, doubt began to grow in her mind. She couldn't help but wonder if he was really being truthful with her, or if there was something else going on that he wasn't telling her. She just wanted this to be behind them. In the end, Jenna forgave Mark, but she made it clear that she would be keeping a close eye on him from then on. She knew that she couldn't trust him completely, and that it would take time for him to earn back her trust. But the pressure kept on mounting. The shadow of uncertainty loomed large, casting a pall over their efforts. Jenna's frequent visits to the hospital became a grim routine. Each appointment was a nerve-wracking experience as they checked on the health of the septuplets. The medical team, now familiar faces, provided reassurance and support, but the reality was unavoidable. Jenna was charting unknown territory, and the risk grew with each passing week. If only she knew what else she was carrying in her belly. In the midst of their turmoil, things got worse for Jenna and Mark. Mark's worry was evident in every other person's face, including the medical practitioners. Jenna's belly had grown abnormally large, too large for the 7 children, in fact. This alone put everyone on high alert. Her health was also deteriorating quickly. It was becoming evident that she might not make it to the full pregnancy term, as she and her husband had hoped. However, the mom-to-be held out hope. Among the sea of doubters, she alone stood valiant. She found an unexpected source of comfort in the fact that she was doing right by herself and her kids. Mark rallied behind her, and together, the two forged a new path through this turbulent darkness. They connected with a support group for parents expecting multiples. This community became their lifeline, offering advice, sharing experiences, and providing a sense of normalcy in their chaotic world. They should have known that this would end very differently from what they expected. It was here, within the parenting community, that the couple heard stories of triumph and loss, of miracles and heartbreak. These stories, though varied, all carried a message of resilience and hope. Jenna, in particular, drew strength from these encounters, using them to bolster her resolve. The support group became a beacon of hope, reminding her that no matter the outcome, they would not face it alone. But if she was smart, she'd have had her belly checked because she and her babies were already in danger. The weeks turned into a blur as Jenna approached the critical 30-week mark. The hospital visits intensified, and the medical team took no chances, monitoring her and the babies with meticulous care. It was during one of these checkups that Jenna felt a sudden, sharp pain, a precursor to the tumult that would soon unfold. Rushed into emergency care, Jenna's world narrowed to the immediate concern for her baby's welfare. Mark, her steadfast partner, was by her side, his face a mask of concern and love. It was a crisp morning on February 21st, 2024. The air was filled with tension and excitement as Jenna was prepped for her C-section. The surgical room was bustling with activity. Medical staff were meticulously preparing the array of instruments, checking and rechecking to ensure everything was in order for the delivery of 7 babies. Jenna was lying on the operating table, her face a mask of mixed emotions: anticipation, fear, hope, and love. It was time for the world to meet her babies. The first C-section incision was made, and the atmosphere in the room grew more intense. The anesthesiologist ensured Jenna was comfortable, while the gynecologist began the delicate procedure. Mark stood by Jenna's side, holding her hand tightly, whispering words of encouragement and love. The neonatologists and midwives were on standby, ready to attend to each baby as they were delivered. The room was a hive of focused activity, with every member of the medical team acutely aware of the gravity of the situation. The first baby was carefully delivered, and the room filled with a mixture of relief and joy. The tiny infant was swiftly taken to the neonatal team for assessment. A cry of happiness erupted from Mark and Jenna as they heard the first cry of their newborn. The medical team worked efficiently, and soon, the second baby made its entrance into the world. The delivery was progressing smoothly, and hopes were high for the remaining 5 babies. But soon, things would take a different turn. As the third baby was delivered, the medical team exchanged puzzled glances. The number of babies did not seem to match the initial count. A sense of confusion spread through the room. The doctors quickly conferred, recounting and recalibrating their plans. Jenna, still under anesthesia, remained blissfully unaware of the unfolding situation. With each subsequent delivery, the realization became clearer. There were more than 7 babies. The doctors were stunned, trying to come to grips with the unexpected turn of events. The atmosphere in the room shifted from one of controlled excitement to one of disbelief and uncertainty. Mark, his face a mixture of shock and concern, clung to Jenna's hand, searching her face for any signs of distress. The medical team scrambled to adjust their plans, adapting to the unexpected situation. A recount was conducted, confirming the shocking truth. Jenna was carrying 9 babies, not 7. The news sent ripples of astonishment throughout the room. The gynecologists and neonatologists quickly recalibrated their strategies, ensuring they were prepared to safely deliver the remaining babies. With the revelation of the additional babies, the complexity of the delivery increased exponentially. The medical team worked tirelessly, navigating the unexpected challenges with skill and determination. Each baby was carefully delivered, with the neonatal team attending to them with utmost care. The delivery process, already fraught with risks, became even more precarious with the increased number of babies. As the 8th and 9th babies were delivered, the room was filled with a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and awe. The medical team had successfully managed the unexpected situation, ensuring the safe delivery of all 9 babies. The neonatologists and midwives worked tirelessly, stabilizing each baby and preparing them for the next phase of their journey. With the delivery completed, the room fell into a momentary lull. The medical team took a collective breath, reflecting on the unprecedented and unexpected turn of events they had just navigated. Mark and Jenna, still coming to terms with the shocking revelation, looked at each other with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. The realization that they were now parents to 9 babies began to sink in. The enormity of their new reality was overwhelming, but Mark and Jenna's hearts were filled with love and gratitude. To them, this was another happy blessing,